Hello everyone, and very welcome today to Riksföreningen JAG's seminar at Almedalsveckan Digital. As we have international guests in the panel today, this seminar will be held in English. But the seminar will also be published on Riksföreningen JAG's YouTube channel with Swedish subtitling later. It's actually the last seminar with Riksföreningen JAG for this week, and the topic is differences in the view of people with disabilities in Sweden, Norway, and Finland. We will discuss whether all people have an equal right to self-determination. What are the differences in being entitled to personal assistance in our three countries? Must you be able to speak for yourself to be granted personal assistance and live a life in freedom? Or is it just a benefit for a few? With us today, I'm happy to present Ines Bulic-Cochucario, Deputy Director for the European Network on Independent Living. Hello, welcome. Ina Alros, representing JAG Assistance, Finland. Hello. Alette Reinholt from JAG Assistance Norway. Hello, welcome. And Cecilia Blank from Riksföreningen JAG in Sweden. Very welcome, all of you. You will soon have the chance to present yourselves, but first a few words about Riksföreningen JAG. The National Association JAG consists of people who have several major disabilities, one of which is an impairment of intellectual ability. Only those have voting rights in the association and can be elected to the board. The JAG members need support both of their personal assistants and of a legal representative who helps them interpret and express their will. The members are very different from each other, with different life situations, different functional abilities, difficulties, and strengths. JAG members are actually not a group at all. That is why the association is called JAG, or I, or me. On the other hand, the members share many hard experiences, facing similar threats and obstacles in life that can be expressed as IQ discrimination or institutions or oppressions in other ways due to reduced functional ability. The most important tool for the work of this association is visibility, that members mark their place in the society, in the public sphere, in the community, and in the debate. People with such severe disabilities have been invisible and placed in institutions for decades. We know that the unseen do not exist. That is why it's so important to us, because everyone is the main character in their own life. Now, very welcome again. Would you please like to briefly introduce yourself? Would you like to start, Ines?
Hi, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Nice to be with you. So my name is Ines Bulic-Cochucario, as introduced. I represent the European Network on Independent Living. So we are a Europe-wide user-led network, which focuses on promoting the implementation of Article 19 of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which is the right to independent living and being included in the community. We are cross disability, so we do not discriminate against any group of disabled people. We advocate for all disabled people to have this right, to be able to choose where, with whom, and how they live, and to have access to personal assistance and other support services, and also, of course, to be able to access all parts of the mainstream society. And very happy to be at the event organized by JAG. We've had a long cooperation, and we always really point to JAG as as an organization, one of very few, or maybe the only organization of the kind in Europe that is led by people which do need quite a lot of support, but YAG is a very good example of how everyone really can live included in society. So very happy to share our knowledge and experience.
Thank you. Alette, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you for the invitation. I'm from YAG Assistanse in Norway. I've been working as an advisor in YAG in Norway since 2015, for 6 years now. And we've got a lot of inspiration from Sweden, also visiting Sweden many times before the corona. I'm also on my spare time, I'm doing a lot of work with the organization for people with intellectual disabilities in Norway called NFU. I'm working in different boards there to get a better situation for people in Norway with intellectual disabilities. And I'm here because Katrina Schumann, who is the leader in YAG, couldn't be here today, so I'm happy to be here and hope that will be okay.
Yes, of course. We're happy to have you here. Ina, would you like to present yourself?
Yes. Hi, my name is Ina Alros, and I'm the CEO for the Finnish company YAG Assistans AB. And I did my thesis about the legislation in Finland about personal assistance and compared the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. And so I think this is really interesting, and I'm glad to be here today.
We're happy to have you. Cecilia, please continue.
Yes, hello. I'm Cecilia Blank, and I'm the manager of the association YAG in Sweden. And I've been active for many years now, and I've also been part of the work that we are doing in INIL, of course, the association on European level that we are members in. But also the Nordic family of associations that we are developing in the YAG family. And I will try to express to you later, I think in the seminar, why this is so important for us. We work politically all over the Nordic countries, but also we are providing personal assistance, which we see as ideology in practice, actually, in the different activities and the companies that we have.
Thank you. Welcome all. There are many differences in the legislation in the European countries in respect of people with disabilities. And Ines, I would like to start to ask you, which country in Europe has a legislation or case practice that best matches Article 19 of the Functional Law Convention? That includes rights to independent living and personal assistance.
Right, thank you for the question. Well, so we actually did a survey last year. We called it the Independent Living Survey, where we asked our members and also disabled people, our individual members, organizational members from across Europe about the implementation of Article 19 in their countries, right? And access to the right to independent living. And what we heard back, so we collected information about 43 countries. So these are countries beyond the European Union, so in the Council of Europe area. And actually 72% of countries are considered to be inadequate in implementation of Article 19. And 28% of people consider their countries requiring improvement. So there is 28% of the countries. And there was not a single country where we got the response that everything was perfect, you know, that people actually had the right, every disabled person had the right to independent living. So it's very hard to say which country is the best. What we know that is that there is a huge room for improvement across Europe when it comes to Article 19. What people highlighted was the biggest issue was that even where there is a range of services and support services available, that still not everyone has the right to choose where they live and with whom they live. So in each country, there is always a group of people, or there are always people who are not able to choose, who are put in some form of residential care, be it a small institution or a large institution. And I think that is the biggest issue. So we could say that overall, there is no country that in Europe that is perfect in this respect.
And could you say something about our 3 Nordic countries? We usually point out that Sweden has come far. What is your opinion, and how would you rank the 3 countries based on independent living and functional law? In what order would you place us?
I mean, I think Sweden is certainly looked up to as a country where, you know, you have come further than other countries when it comes to respect of the right to independent living. I mean, we've heard about the deterioration of the right in the recent years. We've heard about the problems, but still, in compared to other countries, Sweden is far ahead in terms of, you know, a range of support services, in terms of the number of people living in residential care settings, and, you know, just in terms of choice and control, Sweden is further ahead. I think in comparing the Nordic countries, and I know we have a colleague here from Finland, but Finland does seem a bit further behind Norway and Sweden from our point of view, from what we hear. We actually have a case in front of the European Committee on Social Rights against Finland for how people were treated during the COVID-19 pandemic, in terms of, it's to do with the fact that a lot of people were restricted in movement, people living in housing units. And in terms of, especially in relation to people with intellectual disabilities, we know that Finland is still behind in terms of people being placed in institutions in residential care settings. So that is from our perspective. Between Sweden and Norway, again, from outside, Sweden does seem to be a bit ahead of Norway, because we are also in touch with colleagues from Norway. We have a very strong member, Uloba, in Norway, who are doing great work, but I know that they're fighting for the independent living was set within healthcare legislation. So they're fighting for independent living to be part of not health care, you know, legislation, but social and mainstream, basically, human rights sort of framework. So yes, I think Sweden is still, and the Nordic countries in general are doing much better in terms of people's choice and control, and just the whole deinstitutionalization process that has gone much further ahead than in the rest of Europe. I'd say Denmark is even further behind. I don't know if you include it, you know, among you, but we know that in Denmark, for example, they're building again smaller institutions again, and there seems to be that tendency to place people in congregate settings rather than provide them with opportunities to live independently.
I see. Thank you. Ina, what would you say? Do you agree with Ines about Finland's position?
Yeah, unfortunately, I agree. The situation, sad to hear that Denmark would be even more behind. But I think we are really working a lot to get the legislation so that people with intellectual disabilities could also get personal assistance in their own homes.
Is there a new legislation about to deploy? Is there anything you can tell us about?
Yeah.
Are there any news about that legislation? Will it help us?
Well, hopefully. We don't know how it seems to end up yet, but I think all the organizations in Finland agree that there should be a change in the legislation about the personal assistance for intellectual disabilities, persons with intellectual disabilities. And we are eagerly lobbying for changes in the formulation. And in our opinion, people who do not communicate using verbal languages could be granted personal assistance if they choose to turn to a firm instead of carrying the responsibility as employer themselves, if I understood you correctly. I think that's the thing. We are afraid that they would, in Finland, we use a lot the self-employment, like you are an employer for your assistance. And that's maybe something or maybe that's not the best kind of system for our members, but I think that there is a little hope that this change is coming, but not.
That's good to hear.
Yeah,
at least.
Yeah.
Alette, what would you say? Do you agree with Ines about Norway's position? Do you have anything?
In the middle?
Yes.
Yes. Well, I think that's quite right, because, you know, Sweden was in front of this independent living and personal assistance from legislation in 1994. And Norway got it first in 2015, 6 years ago. So we're quite far after when it's personal assistance and the right to live independently. So what we see is that, as you talked about, Ines, the situation under Corona, it has been the same in Norway as in Finland, with people couldn't get out of their houses, they couldn't get visit when they were living in these communal institutions. And what is sad is that we had this reform in 1990 in Norway, when people with intellectual disabilities should move out and live normally together with other people in the local communities. But we see now that we're going back again. So they are building bigger and bigger institutions. And it has been the focus from the individual, and the living condition is going more on the system and group service. So it's a bad situation totally for people with intellectual disabilities in many ways. But in personal assistance, since we got it in 2015, the biggest growth has been for people with intellectual disabilities, and also children has had quite big growth. So they have many people now, but we are only 3,600 people in Norway who has personal assistance. And when we got the right in 2015, it was 3,000. So it has been a very small growth totally. And we are also concerned of that they have set down a committee to look on BPA, because it's so different in the local communities. And we see that they point out our group because they need to have other people to speak for them, or they need assistance in the role as to lead the assistant. So it's some signals that's not good. So we are very we are on to be sure to keep the right we have now.
Thank you, Cecilia. What would you like to comment? Why is it so important for Sweden that this struggle moves on?
Yes, it definitely is. And it's kind of dangerous on the top. As if you point us out as the best country, it's a dangerous position for us because our politicians always look at other countries' systems, of course. They want to be inspired. And we know, especially the close ones. So Finland and Norway are very important for us, was from the beginning. And we have had several governmental investigations looking into the systems in the Nordic countries, making comparisons for the future for Sweden. And they find some examples about different groups or exclusive legislation. And it has been an inspiration for them for saving money in Sweden, of course. So it's very dangerous for us. And that was actually also part of the reason why we started many years ago working on a Nordic network, because we saw that this was important also for the members in Sweden. And more than 10 years ago now, it resulted in JOG organizations in both Norway and Finland. And they've been working very hard. Norway has been extremely successful. They broadened the right to personal assistance years ago in different stages. And Finland is also successful. We have more success to come, we hope, but we have definitely awakened people about this question, talking about IQ discrimination and pointing out this problem very clearly. And I think that has had an impact in Finland. You can protest if you want, Ina, but that's my opinion. And we have no organization in Denmark. We have no interest from them, and maybe it's not a coincidence. There might be a reason for that. It's been very quiet for them, even when we invited them to things. They're not here.
Thank you, Cecilia. I will just remind you that everyone in the audience, feel free to ask questions in the chat. Ines, what would you say if we look at the European Union level? What would the recipe for everyone in Europe be to be able to live in freedom with personal assistance? Should each country work independently, or should there be some sort of central legislation from the European Union, do you think?
Yeah, we've had quite a bit of discussion around this also within ENEL with some members, of course, from countries where personal assistance is very poor. They've been asking us to advocate for a kind of a central fund, even for personal assistance, or for more, more coherence at the EU level. But of course, the countries where personal assistance is better, they don't want to go, they don't want the standards to erode either, kind of to go to some minimum common standard. So there's been a lot of discussion around that. I mean, certainly personal assistance and support, social protection, social care, that is the competence of the member states. So we don't think it's realistic that there will be European legislation on that. I mean, it's simply not the competence of the European Union. Where the European Union does have competence is in the area of equality and non-discrimination. So we have been with other organizations, we have been advocating a long time for better non-discrimination law at the EU level. That at the moment we only have protection against discrimination in employment, and there is no, in terms of disabled people, there is no protection from discrimination in other areas. So that's something that, but there are member states that are against this, which is why this directive has never been adopted, So that is one area. We have been working a lot with ENEL on how the European Union funds are used, the structural and investment funds. And this is where, because this is clearly the competence of the European Union, this is the money, you know, that's disbursed by the EU to the member states. And we believe that this money should not be used to put people in institutions or to keep people in institutions or in any way, you know, violate their rights. But this is still happening across Europe. So this, we have put most of our advocacy into this objective, you know, and also where we know that, for example, the European Social Fund is used in some countries to support to fund personal assistance schemes. So we have also been advocating that where the EU is funding personal assistance schemes, these assistance schemes should be also of the highest quality, you know, because again, we can see a wide variation in these schemes. I mean, they, yeah, you know, every country can call something personal assistance, and it's not proper personal assistance. It's very limited. It's only for some groups. It's only for this and this many hours, you know, etc., etc. So we have, in this respect, we have been saying that the European Commission should monitor, for example, how these projects where it's about personal assistance, and they should evaluate to what extent this is in line with Article 19, and they should guide member states and push member states to ensure that these personal assistance schemes, when they are funded by the EU, that they are in line with the convention, you know, that they really support the right to independent living of everyone. So we have been, this is where our advocacy has been, and there is, again, I mean, it's a difficult fight with the EU funding, because we can see more and more, it used to be that this money went into large institutions, and we still see this money going into large institutions, but more and more countries are building smaller institutions to replace these large institutions with that funding. And of course, it is mainly for people with intellectual disabilities, people with psychosocial disabilities, so people who are considered more difficult to, you know, support to live in the community. So yeah, I think this is where we all have to work together, and we would like to see more support from, for example, MEPs for Sweden or for other countries that are a bit better at independent living. We would like to see them also paying more attention to this issue and making this more of a political priority, because, you know, it's where there's money involved, there is of course a lot of resistance to any kind of intervention, and member states don't like to be told how they spend this money. So we need more support, I think, here.
Yeah, okay. Would you like to comment on this, perhaps, Cecilia? Is there anything you would like to add?
Yes, I agree with you, Ines, that minimum standards are dangerous. It tends to be the level that countries end up on, exactly that level. And it's a dangerous, of course, for if there are higher ambitions. But I think that EU could be more active when it comes to exchange good examples, information about personal assistance, what it is, as you said, and what it isn't, definitely that too. And maybe some rewarding for countries that fulfill the convention in good ways. So I think there are many things to do.
We're almost running out of time now, but I still would like to ask Alette and Ina, would you like to add something or comment?
Well, I can just say I agree with Cecilia that, because it's very, if you're going to take someone high, and it's a different, it's a danger that it will, everybody will drag each other down, of course. So you need to follow the money and follow the projects so that they are used on the correct way. So it's not used to build more institutions or support the institutions. But of course, it's important with solidarity with other countries which has terrible conditions for people with the intellectual disabilities. So we need to do something, of course. And I hope EU can do something.
Ina?
Yeah, and I think like if we give the right to choose what kind of living people want, and when they see the possibilities they get when they live independently, maybe then the institutions would be empty. And I think like to bring the opportunity to show that, okay, this works. And in Finland, we need it. It have to have come from a higher, from somewhere higher than just our legislation. It's like EU or something else that needs to come and say that you need to stop this and you need to make a change in your legislation.
We need to join and unite and keep up the struggle. Actually, we have a question in the chat, if we can just give it a few more minutes. It's what is the situation on Iceland and Greenland? Do we have any information on that?
We do have a member in Iceland. It's also a group, a disabled people's organization. I don't have, to be honest, I don't have a very, very clear picture. I think they're also somewhere in between. There is some access to personal assistance. I'm not sure if everyone who needs it does have access to it, but they definitely do have some personal assistance there. I mean, it's a small country, so we are not. There is a very strong. We work quite closely with at the University of Iceland. There is a strong team focusing on the right to independent living. And there is a lot of good research coming from there, and this is mostly our contact with Iceland. I'm not even sure. I would be surprised if they had a big problem with institutions. I don't think so. What we hear from Iceland, and this is where most discussion is the eugenics debate. I don't know if it's talked about in Sweden or in your countries. It's the fact that, I don't know, no babies with Down syndrome have been born in the last so and so many years because of prenatal testing and the kind of information that is passed on to mothers. So that's an Iceland debate on Iceland that has been around, and it is a concern. It's all about stigma and awareness raising around disability, people with disabilities.
I'm sorry about that. Also, I can see that Victoria seems to have a question. Please go ahead. Is that correct?
Yes,
and
yes? I got my answer what you talked about in Iceland, but Greenland.
I see.
But Greenland is with Denmark, right? About or how is the situation in Greenland, or is Greenland under the styre med Danmark, eller hur fungerar det?
Is Greenland connected to Denmark when it comes to the legislation and the convention?
Yeah, I believe that Greenland is officially a part of Denmark. I hope I'm not committing some diplomatic, but I think so. We don't have, never heard anything specifically on Greenland, or yes, from anyone. So yes, but it is officially part of Denmark. So I would say they would have the same rules and regulations, etc. as as in Denmark. Sometimes it differs, of course, in when it comes to islands or remote areas. Provision can be very different, but we don't have absolutely any information. There's no group that we are aware of in Greenland. We don't have a member. Sorry about that.
Okay, I see. Thank you. And we have passed our 30 minutes, but there is a last question from Said, I think. Is that correct? Var det så? Said, hade du någon fråga? Kanske hade skickat någonting till Kerstin? Någon fråga? Nej? Okay. All right. Is there anything, Cecilia, Ina, or Alette, that you would like to add or comment? No. Otherwise, I will thank you so very much for attending, and thank you for interesting discussions, and thank you so much the audience for attending. And we're very happy to have performed all the seminars this week. So thank you for listening, and I wish you all a very nice summer. Take care and bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.